You already know the version of yourself you're trying to become. You thought about them probably this week, or maybe in the last hour. The decisions they'd make, the way they'd speak, the way they'd act, the things they'd achieve. The frustrating part isn't that you don't know who you need to be. That plays on loops. It's that you do, but you don't know how to permanently become that version. Every time you feel like you have it, it slips through your fingers. That's not a discipline problem. There's a hidden layer underneath your identity, and almost no one's ever taught how to touch it. I know this because I've helped people like Matt Silva go from zero to $96,000 a month. Brennan Hillary go from driving Lyft to $20,000 months by changing that layer. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to do just that and reinvent yourself so fast it feels illegal, so you can actually shift your identity to the one that achieves your goals, not just chases them. First, I need to show you the biggest reason why 99% of people fail to reinvent their identity. Let me describe a pattern you've probably already lived. You've got massive motivation for a goal for 30 to 60 days, and you're generally disciplined. But after those 60-ish days, it slowly starts to fade back to baseline. Whatever the area was, business, maybe it was fitness, dating, sobriety, the arc is identical. The reason that pattern repeats isn't that you're undisciplined. You can't out-discipline an identity. The brain protects an existing self the way the body protects against a transplant. Effort is not the issue. The wrong layer is. Most people work the top layer because it's the only one they can see. This is the behavior, the routines, their morning protocols. But this is not the layer that actually controls your behavior. Picture, if you will, someone who wakes up Monday committed to the new version of themselves. They hit the gym at 5 a.m. They journal their thoughts every morning, and they make sure they eat clean. But then, because something happens, they miss one day. But then that day turns into a week, and that week turns into a month. And 4 months later, the entire routine is forgotten. And they're convinced they need a better system, but it's actually the identity underneath that never agreed to be the kind of person who runs that system. So the question we're really asking, the one that opens this whole video, is what is the layer underneath identity? And how do you actually change it? That's where we're going next. Identity is the word everyone uses and almost no one defines. So let me define it the way I work with it. Identity isn't an emotion or a vibe. It's a story playing silently behind every decision you make. It controls every price you set, every offer you take or pass, and every conversation you might take or walk away from. Every plate you put on the bar at the gym, the story decides everything you do. By the time the decision reaches your conscious mind, the story has already filtered out half the options, and this is proven by science. They've seen that our brain makes decisions up to 2 seconds before we actually see our body moving. And here's the part that makes most people uncomfortable. Most of that story was written by people who weren't you. This can be your parents, your teacher, your environment, or even your religion. Whatever happened around the time you watched a parent struggle with money, fail at something, get yelled at, get let down. That meaning got stored in the body alongside the emotional response. The yogis call these patterns samskaras, emotional grooves that got worn into you and never got felt all the way through. So the body holds them. Anything similar that comes up later pulls the same meaning, the same emotional response, the same behavior right back up. You didn't pick a self. You inherited one. Let me make this concrete. I had a coach come to me hitting record months in their business, and then suddenly going 15 days without signing a single client. On paper, nothing had changed, but we traced down what was running underneath. The sentence was, I don't want to be broke like my parents, stated as motivation. They were missing every opportunity, though, to be successful because the part of their brain that finds opportunities was busy looking for evidence of lack. The minute they had a record month, the subconscious said, people like us aren't allowed to have that, and quietly steered them back into the familiar shape of struggle. That story didn't argue with the goal. It just produced a result that proved itself right. The lens shift this asks you to make is the heaviest one in the video. You're not improving yourself. You're trying to upgrade a self that was assembled for you before you had the language to consent. Of course it doesn't feel like yours. Of course the upgrades don't stick. You've been patching software that you didn't even write. The unlock is this. The moment you can name the story, you can stop being inside of it. That distance is the whole game. You can't change a story that you can't see. And you can't unsee a story you've finally named. At this point, almost every viewer has the same thought. I've done mindset work. I've journaled. I've meditated. Why hasn't this moved? And that's a fair question, and I want to answer it directly because if I don't, the rest of this video gets filed under things that you've already tried. Affirmations operate on the conscious mind, but the story lives in the subconscious. You're typing on the screen and assuming the hard drive will just rewrite itself. The screen changes, but the drive doesn't. Meditation builds awareness, which is necessary, but awareness alone doesn't surface the specific story. You can sit for 10 years and never name the sentence that's been running you. Manifestation and visualization touch energy and intention, but they aim at the result, not the language producing the result. They're working at the bottom of the chain. The leverage is at the top. Hypnotherapy gets closer than most modalities because it actually reaches the layer where the story's stored. But it usually skips the conscious integration step that makes the change usable in real life. Something shifts, you wake up, and on Tuesday morning, you don't know what to do with that shift. What almost no modality works with directly is the literal language you use about yourself out loud and in your head. The story is made of words. And if the tool never touches the words, the story never actually moves. This is why the gap between I've done the work and I'm still stuck is so common. It's not that you haven't tried. It's that nothing you've tried operated on the layer the story actually lives on. Once you see that, the question becomes operational. Words built the story. So how do you use words to rewrite it? That's the next section. My tagline for what I do is 2 words: rewrite reality. The reason I use that exact phrase is because of the word abracadabra and what it actually means. Aramaic. It translates roughly to with my word I create. You've been doing this unconsciously your entire life. The job from here is doing it on purpose. And fun fact, Aramaic is the language that Jesus spoke. The rewrite is 4 steps. They look small written down. They're not small in practice. Step 1, you title the story and you write it out. Most people have never seen the words running their lives. They've only spoken them. And there is a giant difference between a sentence that lives in your mouth and the same sentence on a page in front of you. Don't start with the deepest core story. It's likely not going to show itself to you anyway. Start with the surface level statement. The thing you say to yourself when you're tired, defending, or doubting. Man, I dropped the ball on that call. I'm so close. People like me don't make a lot of money. Whatever it is, that's the entry point. Title it, write the story underneath it. What's the felt experience under that statement? And when's the earliest time you can remember feeling that exact feeling? That's almost always where the real story lives. Sometimes it's a sales call. Sometimes it's a parent yelling at you when you were 17. The surface statement is the thread you pull. The story underneath is what comes loose. Now, save that story that you found for later, because step 2 with the current statement is read it out loud at a conversational pace. Reading silently is not enough. The story is made of words spoken. The way you change it is the same way you built it, out loud, at normal speed first. Hear yourself say the thing you've been saying to yourself for years. Step 3. You read it again at 80% speed. This is where most of the work happens. When most people speak, they never see their own words. When they write, they finally see them. When they slow down, they see them more, and they finally sit in them. Read the story at 80% of normal pace, out loud. The pacing forces you to actually hear it. You stop reading at the speed your mind wants you to skim, and you start hearing the sentence as a sentence. Step 4. Read it again at 80% speed with a breath in between every sentence. You're going to take a natural pause and breath wherever it fits. The breath is the part nobody includes. The reason it matters is that the story is held in the body, not just the head. Up until you breathe it out, the story has been running circles in your head, fast, on a loop, in your face. The breath lets you separate from it. It lets you actually feel where it sits in your body instead of being inside of it. What happens at this stage is the part I find most beautiful in this work. When the rewrite actually installs for someone, they finally hear themselves for the first time in a long time, if not ever. The line they've been saying for years stops being them and starts just being a sentence. And that's the entire shift. Then comes the question we ask. What did this story mean to you? And what does it mean now? Most of the time, the answer to what it meant lands as a negation. It means I'm not enough. It means I'll never be safe. It means I don't deserve. And that negation is the leverage point. You take that negation and you flip it. Well, I'm not that. So what if I'm not that? What am I? The answer to that question, written in your own words, in language you can actually agree with today, is the new sentence. Not an affirmation, a truth statement. Something you could say out loud about a friend you trust with a straight face today. And if you can't, the sentence is still arguing with the old story that's stored in your body. Find the smaller, more honest version. That version is almost always the one that actually moves the needle. That truth statement is what you speak in the moments that the old line used to fire. Speak it out loud. Words built the old story, words rewrite it. Thought is too quiet to compete with what's already running, what's been running for decades. This is not Affirmations 2.0. This is reverse engineering the exact mechanism that built the version of you that's currently here and using that same mechanism on purpose to build the version that's next. Most people quit this work in the first 2 weeks because the signal they're expecting and the signal they actually get look nothing alike. They expect to feel transformed, fired up, different. They don't. And this is what I tell my clients when they start, that the first signal is silence. The thing that used to set you off stops landing. The trigger doesn't fire. The old line comes up in your head. You hear it as old, not you. You notice the absence of the reaction more than you notice anything new. Most people miss this entirely because they're scanning for fireworks. The actual sign is the room goes quiet where the alarm used to go off. The second signal is consistency without willpower. The action that used to take massive effort starts happening with normal effort. You're not pushing. The version of you running the new story just does it. The early morning, the hard call, the conversation you used to avoid. They become unremarkable. Unremarkable is the goal. Unremarkable is what an identity feels like from the inside. We've integrated it. It no longer is this big wow thing that's outside of the norm of our nervous system. And the third signal is what people usually call synchronicity. The right person reaches out. The right opportunity just appears. The right conversation starts. Not because the universe rewarded you, because the version of you running the new story sees and accepts what was already there. The opportunity didn't show up, you did. The reticular activating system stopped scanning for evidence of the old story and started letting through the evidence the new one was always sitting in. The same client I mentioned earlier, the one who'd hit $40,000 months and watched the whole thing collapse to zero, who couldn't afford gas at the bottom of it, we traced what was running underneath, cleared the story that had been quietly running circles in his head, and his critical thinking came back. He started operating like a CEO again. The climb was a hockey stick. He came back to a $96,000 month, not because he found a new strategy, but because there was suddenly a different person executing the strategy that had been there the whole time. The reframe that earns the title of this video is this: you're not building a new you. You're removing the suppression of who's already been underneath. That's why this can happen so fast. There's nothing to construct, only something to stop blocking. The version you've been trying to become has been waiting on you the whole time. Speak to yourself like the person you're trying to become, and within enough time, the gap closes. Not because you faked it, because language is how you actually got there. Now you know how to reinvent yourself. But becoming the new version is only the start to achieving your goals, because you also have to change the frequency you broadcast from, because that's what actually pulls clients towards you. So click this video here, because it will show you how to create a frequency so magnetic that clients practically chase you. I'll see you there.